Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be testing out the new Makeup Forever HD Skin Face Essentials palette. So I did just order this in from Sephora, and I think this is supposed to be available March 31st on Sephora's website, March 30th for Rouge members, but Sephora Canada does have it available now. So this does retail for $88 US or 119 Canadian. So you have to really want this, especially if you're in Canada. So I was, of course, very excited to pick this up a little bit early because with the Sephora sale coming up, I really wanted to get my thoughts up a little bit early to help you decide if you actually want to pick this up or not. So this is what the box looks like. This is made in Japan, and like I said, it's quite pricey. They have come out with these types of palettes twice before, and I did not purchase those, but this one just kind of got my attention. So this is what the inner packaging looks like. It is a tin compact, and it's actually smaller than I thought from photos. So if I measure against my hand, this is the size. So definitely smaller than I thought. But I'm really excited to try it out, especially because when it comes to Makeup Forever, they don't tend to miss when it comes to complexion products. So this is what the inner packaging looks like. So on this side you have foundation and bronzer shades, or just in general foundation shades, and then you get blush and highlight on the bottom, and they have this labeled as Harmony 1. So this is the fair to medium palette. There is also medium to deep with much deeper shades. So there is going to be something for everyone. So these are of course all creams, and it does actually have corresponding shade names to their foundations over on this side. So we actually have one R12 and we have one N00. My foundation shade is 1R02, so I'm going to be a mix between these two. I think this will be a really nice concealer. And then we have 3N42, 2N22, 4N68, and 3N52. So you really do get a really nice range in here. So let's pin the hair back and get into putting this on the face. Okay, so first let me show you swatches of the foundation, bronzer, contour side. So this is what everything is looking like. So these top two right over here is what I thought would be my foundation shades. So the very top one I think is the closest match, but I am going to have to add in a little bit of this one just to get my perfect shade. And then these bottom ones are going to be really nice bronzer shades for me. But you can see we can definitely get some depth in there. So if you are more medium, you can definitely make something work with this as well. Next, let's take a look at the blush and highlighter side. Okay, so here is the blush and highlighter side. So over here we do have the two highlights. I was thinking the pinky highlight might be great for me as a blush topper, but it's actually so sheer that it's only going to be a blush for me. And then of course we have these other blush shades here. I will say the blushes and highlights are very much oil-based. There is a lot of slip to them. So I just think that that is something important to mention. Okay, so let's get to putting this on the face. I'm going to start with one R02. I just want to see how it looks on my skin tone. Yeah, it definitely needs a little bit of that lighter shade. And together they are perfect. So I have just mixed the two, and I'm going to go ahead and try to blend those on the face. These are supposed to offer like a medium buildable coverage, and I'm just dabbing between those two foundation shades to try and mix them. I'm just using a BK Beauty 106. I really wasn't sure what other brush to use. Mixing those two shades really does give me a pretty close shade match, I will say that. So my palette is getting pretty messy having to mix the two, but I do like the convenience of having a cream in a palette like this. Okay, so we have with the foundation and without, and I'm actually kind of impressed. It does look really seamless. Let me zoom you in so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so this side has the mixed shade of foundation. On this side, we have nothing. It really did even me out quite nicely. It didn't give me a full coverage, but definitely buildable. definitely looks nice, and I feel like it looks really, really seamless. I should mention, before I did this, all I had on was my Tatcha Dewy Skin Cream. I just did my skincare, and that actually looks quite nice. So let's do the other side. I'm really, really liking how that's looking as a foundation. My goodness. I can't wait to see how long this wears also. And my skin is having a little fit this week, but this looks really good. And this brush is actually quite nice for it. I went with this one because it is a little bit smaller. I'm dying to get my hands on the BK Beauty 109, but I'm just waiting for a sale. But I think that would have been a perfect brush. I think the typical 101 would have been just a little too big. But this is very, very convenient having foundation in a little compact like this, because there's no mess having to pour it out on a palette or the back of your hand or anything like that. It's good to go. All right, so this is just with the foundation. I am really impressed. First of all, I thought having to mix shades was going to be way harder than it was, but it was actually very, very simple. I'm really impressed. It feels very lightweight on the skin. It doesn't feel like a foundation. It honestly feels like a moisturizer. It just feels very lightweight and comfortable. And I was kind of wondering about that because cream foundations can feel heavy. Like if I think about the Patrick Ta foundation, that one feels very, very heavy, especially if you try to layer it. This one doesn't feel at all heavy. I am very impressed with this. It just looks really nice and really lightweight. The mix of those top two shades is perfect for my skin tone. It looks very, very skin-like. It does not look like I have something heavy on here. I like this so far. Okay, I'm gonna grab my concealer brush and I am gonna go into that lightest shade. See, I told you my palette was a mess already. I'm gonna go into that lightest shade. I will clean up my palette, but I wanna go into that lightest one for my under eyes. That's a really nice concealer shade. It's brightening, almost a little bit too much so, but I can just grab some of the, mix in a little bit of that deeper foundation, and that's perfect. That also feels weightless under the eyes. But can you see the difference? That looks pretty good. I do think something like this is going to be much more ideal for a makeup artist, just because you get such a range of skin tones in here, but I do think the average makeup lover could definitely get a lot of use out of this, which is really exciting as well. I don't consider myself a makeup artist, but I have done wedding makeup for others, and my first thought when I was looking at this is how perfect that this would be if I had to do that again. It's not likely, but if I had to do it again, it would be perfect. Okay, I think I'm gonna go into 3N42 as a bronzer. I'm worried it's gonna be too warm, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm just going in with my e.l.f. Putty Primer Applicator brush. I am tapping a bit off on my hand before I go in, just because I am a little worried about the shade. Oh, that's not bad at all. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a little bit warm, but it still looks quite nice. Of course, it blends perfectly because it's the same formula as the foundations I used, and it actually is going to give me a little bit more coverage because of that as well. So not complaining. Let's go in on this side. I do think I went a little bit hard on the cheeks, which I didn't mean to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab the brush I used for the foundation. I'm just gonna kind of blend around the edges just to make sure that it is melting in really, really well. I don't think that bronzer is the perfect bronzer shade for me, but it'll do for sure. It would definitely do in a pinch. For the blushes, I really want to show you all of them, but I only have 2 cheeks and I want this to come out really nice. So I think I'm gonna go into this shade right here. This one is labeled as 212, so I would imagine in their regular line. And like I mentioned, the blushes are a much more oily formula than the other side. Ooh, that's pretty though. Ooh, I really like that. I really like that. I love how it melts into the other products. I really like that. It's definitely sheer. Definitely sheer. I don't really mind that though. Oh, that's really pretty. I do like that. Do I want to try one of the other blush shades too? Let's do it for the review. I'm dying to go into this bottom shade here. This is 208. I'm just dying to know what it looks like. That's a really pretty kind of rosewood type shade. I would use that a lot, actually. That's really pretty. It's kind of got sort of a mauve leaning element to it. Definitely has more pigment to it than the other side, but that's really, really pretty too. And I did get a little crazy around the center. But that's really pretty. I like both of these blushes a lot. I do think this one would be too deep for me. This one is going to be a really pretty coral. Okay, so I think on one side I'm going to use the pink highlight and the other I'll use this one. So I was initially thinking that this pinky highlight would be a blush topper. I'm also thinking the best way to apply is going to be with my fingers. So I just picked up that pinky highlight on a finger and I'm just going to dab it right on the top of my cheekbone. It definitely enhances the glow, but I don't think it's the most overly shiny highlight, but that's pretty on trend right now. I'm gonna pick up the more champagne highlight over here. I feel like that gave us a bit more glow than the pink did. Can you see the difference? Yeah, the highlights are definitely a little bit more subtle, but again, they are just cream highlights and that's pretty typical. Overall, I'm thinking the base looks quite nice. I'm very pleasantly surprised. I'll be honest with you. I did not know what I was going to think of this. I was a little skeptical. I typically would never do a full face of cream products. I'm very pleasantly surprised at how actually user-friendly and workable these products are. The foundations are a beautiful cream formula that don't feel heavy or anything. Okay, I'm gonna pop off camera, finish up the rest of my makeup, and I will be back with my final thoughts. All right, so the rest of the makeup is now on, and I just wanted to come back and share my final thoughts on the palette. So I am pleasantly surprised by this. First of all, the foundation and the bronzer shades are perfect. The formula is incredibly easy to work with, very, very blendable. It sits so comfortably on the skin. It doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't feel sticky, it doesn't feel tacky. I didn't need to add any powder. I did add a little bit of powder under my eyes just because I found that that concealer was starting to crease a little bit, but I just wanted to add some powder. I wanted to add some powder to the center of my face anyway, just because using a fully cream palette, I felt like I was a little bit too shiny. These were so easy to apply. Even having to mix the two together, I thought that would be a little bit difficult. It wasn't at all. I was able to do everything straight out of the palette, mix everything together, and it just went on so seamlessly. Even the shade that I used for my bronzer, which was this one, it was a little warm. It's not my perfect bronzer shade, but it definitely worked. It definitely got the job done, and because it's the exact same formula as what I used for the foundation, it blended that much easier. The blushes I was a little worried about because they are definitely more oil-based, but they were actually so beautiful as well. So I used this one, and then when I popped off camera, I did mix the two just so that I was sort of matching on each side because I felt like one side was definitely a little bit heavier, and I still think that looks really nice as well. So I was really happy with that. The highlights, I can't see myself reaching into too much. The pink one really didn't do much for me at all. I was initially thinking it would be a bit of a blush topper, but it's very, very sheer. The blushes are on the sheer side as well, so if you're worried they're going to be a little bit too pigmented, they're not. This highlighter definitely gave more of an impact, but these are much more subtle, everyday, glow from within type highlights. So very, very easy to use. Again, I was kind of in my head a little bit wondering how exactly I was going to use this, how this was going to work out for me, and I'm so pleasantly surprised with how easy it was. It was not nearly as complicated as I was making it in my mind, so I'm quite impressed with this. I think this is something I'm really going to love in the winter and colder months as a very dry skin type, because something like this just feels so much more comfortable and hydrating rather than going into drying powders when it's super cold out. So I think this is perfect, especially for those with dry skin. I'm not sure how well it's going to work with oilier skin types, just given that it is a fully cream palette, but overall, I think it's fabulous. I think the quality is excellent. Makeup Forever really doesn't miss when it comes to complexion, and I guess they're not starting now because I really like this. I don't even have anything in my collection to truly compare this to, so this is definitely something that adds to my collection, so I also appreciate that. In terms of the price point, so like I said, this is 88 US dollars, 119 Canadian. It is steep. So I do think if you want this, you have to really want it. I think for a makeup artist, this would be incredible. I think if you're somebody who really wants a palette that you can get everything done in, I think you'd really like this. You've got foundation, concealer, bronzer, highlighter, and blush all right here. So I do think that is a staple, and because it really does have all of those things, I think it kind of factors into the price point, because if you were to think about it, if you were to buy foundation, concealer, bronzer, blush, and highlight, it's probably going to cost you well over $88, maybe more than $119. So perhaps this is worth it if you can see yourself using this for a full face. I think this could be a really great daily staple. So even though it is pricey at $88, I do think it could be worth it if you're leaning into it for that, and especially so during the upcoming sale. This is launching right before the Sephora savings event, so if you are a Rouge member, get that 20% off and it will definitely be worth it. I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work out for more oily skin types. I think a full cream palette might not be ideal, but if you do, you could always powder it. I also love that they have a light and a deep option so that it really covers a wide range of skin tones. I just think this is an all-out excellent option, and I can actually see myself using this quite a bit. I honestly wasn't sure, but you know what? I think I will use this a lot. So I would definitely, if you're interested in this and you have a dry skin type like me, 100% I think you'd like it, especially if you're going to get use out of all of the different shades and formulas. I think you can definitely make this work, and I would definitely take advantage of the savings event. But if you can't see yourself using a lot of these shades, maybe you can't see yourself using the blushes, definitely pass on this. I think the only thing that remains to be seen is how this actually wears throughout the day. My makeup could be a hot mess by the time I'm ready to take my makeup off and go to bed. We shall see, but overall, I have pretty high hopes. Everything is looking really good. I'm very optimistic and excited to see how this wears throughout the day. I will leave a pinned comment down below when this video goes up. It'll probably be within a few hours, so I will leave a pinned comment at that point to let you know how things are going, but I will also, of course, update you at the very end of the month with my final thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below. Were you interested in this one? Are you planning to pick it up? Let me know. Do you have any questions that maybe I didn't quite answer? Leave those down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. But that is it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!